Let me start with something most people never notice. Some people carry anxiety like a hidden engine, constantly running beneath a surface that looks perfectly calm. They show up on time, meet deadlines, maintain relationships, excel at work. From the outside, they appear not just functional, but successful, organized, competent, together. And the strange part is that many of them don't realize how much effort it takes to maintain that appearance until something forces them to stop. They grow up thinking that constant internal pressure is normal, that the racing thoughts are just thoroughness, that the need to control everything is responsibility, that the inability to relax is ambition, not a nervous system that never learned how to settle. Because when you have high-functioning anxiety, you don't look anxious. You look like you have everything figured out. This is the psychology of the person whose anxiety doesn't stop them. It drives them. As a child, anxiety often shows up as being the good kid, the one who doesn't cause problems, the one who gets things done without being asked, the one adults describe as mature, reliable, ahead of their peers. But beneath that competence is a mind that's already learned to manage fear through control, through preparation, through making sure nothing goes wrong, because going wrong feels unbearable. These children often come from environments where they felt responsible for outcomes beyond their control. Maybe they had to manage a parent's emotions. Maybe love felt conditional on performance. Maybe chaos was unpredictable and order became their way of creating safety. So they learned early that anxiety could be useful if you channel it into achievement. Adults often praise this child. You're so responsible. You never need reminding. You're going places. But what they're really observing is a nervous system that's found a socially acceptable way to express fear. The child doesn't act anxious, they act perfect, and perfection becomes the armor that hides the constant hum of worry underneath. The high-functioning anxious person learns one powerful lesson early. If you stay ahead of everything, you can prevent disaster. And that belief shapes everything that follows. When anxiety is high-functioning, it doesn't look like panic attacks or visible distress. It looks like productivity, like planning, like always having a backup plan and a backup for the backup. It looks like arriving early, checking twice, anticipating problems before they exist. From the outside, this appears admirable. Internally, it's exhausting because the mind never stops running scenarios, calculating risks, preparing for outcomes that may never happen. This is why many high-functioning anxious people are excellent in crisis situations. They've been mentally rehearsing disasters for years. When something actually goes wrong, they're ready. They don't freeze, they execute. But this constant state of readiness comes at a cost. The cost is that rest feels impossible. Even in moments of calm, the body stays tense. The mind stays active, scanning for the next thing that needs attention. Vacations don't feel relaxing because the mental checklist never stops. Did I lock the door? Did I send that email? What if something happens while I'm gone? The anxiety doesn't present as fear. It presents as responsibility, as conscientiousness, as just being thorough. But underneath, it's the same mechanism, a nervous system that associates vigilance with safety and relaxation with vulnerability. Another trait common in high-functioning anxiety is the need for control, not the loud, obvious kind that demands things be a certain way, the quiet kind that manages, adjusts, prepares, and handles things independently because depending on others feels risky. These individuals often become the organizers, the planners, the ones who make sure everything runs smoothly. They volunteer for responsibilities, not because they want recognition, but because delegating creates more anxiety than just doing it themselves. At least if they do it, they know it's done right. This need for control is the mind's attempt to create predictability in a world that once felt chaotic or unsafe. From a psychological standpoint, high-functioning anxiety often develops as an adaptation to early uncertainty. Perhaps caregivers were inconsistent, perhaps expectations were unclear or constantly shifting. Perhaps the child learned that outcomes were unpredictable unless they personally intervened. So the nervous system calibrated around the belief that safety requires constant management, that if you think ahead enough, plan thoroughly enough, work hard enough, you can prevent bad things from happening. And when bad things don't happen, it reinforces the belief that the anxiety was necessary, that the hypervigilance worked, that you must keep doing this to stay safe. This creates a pattern where success becomes evidence that you need to maintain the anxiety. You got promoted because you worked harder than everyone else. Your relationship survived because you were always accommodating. Nothing fell apart because you held it together. So the mind concludes the anxiety is helping. Without it, everything would collapse. But this logic traps you in a cycle where you can never relax, because relaxing feels like removing the only thing keeping disaster at bay. The anxiety becomes intertwined with identity. You're not anxious, you're just driven, detail-oriented, conscientious. The problem is reframed as a strength. Socially, high-functioning anxiety often manifests as people-pleasing. Not the obvious kind that can't say no, but the subtle kind that adjusts, accommodates, anticipates needs before they're expressed. These individuals become skilled at reading rooms, sensing tension, smoothing over conflict. They make themselves easy to be around by managing their own needs carefully, expressing opinions diplomatically, avoiding anything that might create friction. This isn't manipulation, it's anxiety management. Because conflict, disapproval, or tension activates the nervous system, and the easiest way to prevent that activation is to make sure everyone around you is comfortable. But this constant accommodation creates a specific kind of loneliness. You're surrounded by people who think they know you, but they only know the version you've carefully constructed. The version that's easy, helpful, competent. They don't see the anxiety underneath because you've become expert at hiding it. You don't burden others with your worry. You don't express when you're overwhelmed. You handle it privately because asking for help feels like admitting failure. So you end up isolated even in connection, known but not truly seen, supported in theory but alone in practice. Another common experience is the inability to accept compliments or success. When someone praises your work, you deflect. When you accomplish something significant, you immediately focus on what could have been better. This isn't false modesty, it's that your anxiety tells you that if you acknowledge success, you'll become complacent, that if you celebrate, you'll stop being vigilant, that if you relax your standards, everything you've built will crumble. The anxiety uses self-criticism as motivation, and over time, that inner critic becomes so loud that genuine self-appreciation feels dangerous, like lowering your guard. Physical symptoms are often present but minimized. Tension headaches, digestive issues, difficulty sleeping, jaw clenching, muscle tightness. The body is holding anxiety that the mind won't acknowledge, because admitting you're anxious feels like weakness, and weakness contradicts the identity you've built around being capable and strong. So the body speaks what the mind won't say, and you push through it, take ibuprofen, drink more coffee, tell yourself you're fine. The signals get louder, but you've trained yourself to override them because stopping, resting, or admitting struggle feels more threatening than continuing to push. Decision-making becomes complicated with high-functioning anxiety. Even small choices trigger extensive mental processing. You weigh options obsessively, research exhaustively, consider every possible outcome, not because you're naturally indecisive, but because making the wrong choice feels intolerable. The anxiety tells you that if you just think about it enough, you can guarantee the right outcome. So you analyze until you're paralyzed, and then you either force a decision and second guess it endlessly, or you avoid deciding altogether, which creates its own anxiety. Either way, the mental energy expended is disproportionate to the significance of the choice. There's also a relationship with time that's characteristic of high-functioning anxiety. You're always ahead of schedule, always planning the next thing, always thinking several steps forward. The present moment feels uncomfortable because your mind is busy managing the future. This creates a life where you're never fully where you are. You're at dinner but thinking about tomorrow's meeting. You're on vacation but worrying about what's piling up at home. You're in conversation but mentally rehearsing what you need to do later. Time becomes something to manage rather than experience, and presence becomes nearly impossible because your anxiety lives in the future, in all the things that might go wrong if you're not constantly preparing. One of the most painful aspects of high-functioning anxiety is that it often goes unrecognized, even by the person experiencing it. Because you're successful, because you're managing, because nothing catastrophic has happened, you don't fit the image of someone with anxiety, you don't have panic attacks in public, you don't avoid responsibilities, you don't appear distressed, so you convince yourself you're fine, just busy, just stressed, just going through a demanding period that will eventually ease. But it doesn't ease because the anxiety isn't situational, it's structural, it's woven into how you approach everything, and until that structure is addressed, the external circumstances don't matter. You'll just find new things to be anxious about. The experience of burnout for someone with high-functioning anxiety is particularly confusing. You don't burn out dramatically, you don't have a breakdown that forces intervention. Instead, you slowly lose capacity. Things that used to be manageable start feeling overwhelming. Your usual coping mechanisms stop working. You become irritable, disconnected, numb. But you keep functioning because that's what you do. You keep showing up, keep meeting obligations, keep maintaining the appearance that everything is fine. And people don't realize you're struggling because you've always been so capable, so you suffer privately, wondering why you can't handle what you used to handle, not recognizing that what you used to handle was never sustainable to begin with. Healing from high-functioning anxiety isn't about becoming less productive or competent. It's about separating your worth from your output. It's learning that rest isn't something you earn through exhaustion, that mistakes don't equal catastrophe, that you don't have to anticipate every problem to be safe. This learning is difficult because it requires dismantling beliefs that feel like they've kept you alive. Your anxiety tells you that if you relax your vigilance, everything will fall apart. But the truth is, everything is already falling apart, just slowly, internally, in ways that don't show up on your resume, but absolutely show up in your body, your relationships, your capacity for joy. One of the most important realizations is that the anxiety isn't helping as much as it claims. Yes, you've accomplished things. Yes, you've avoided some problems, but you've also paid an enormous price. You've sacrificed presence for preparation. You've traded peace for productivity. You've worn down your nervous system keeping everything together. And the question worth asking is, what would happen if you didn't? What if you delegated that task? What if you arrived on time instead of early? What if you made a decision without exhaustive analysis? Would disaster actually follow, or would you discover that the world continues just fine without your constant management? Learning to live with high-functioning anxiety means teaching your nervous system something it's never believed, that you can be safe without being perfect, that support is available when you need it, that rest doesn't lead to collapse, that you are valuable beyond what you produce. This learning doesn't happen through logic. It happens through experience, through deliberately practicing rest even when it feels uncomfortable, through making decisions quickly and discovering you survived the imperfection, through asking for help and learning that it doesn't make you weak, through letting something be good enough instead of perfect, and watching nothing terrible happen. The goal isn't to eliminate anxiety entirely. For many people with high-functioning anxiety, some level of conscientiousness is genuinely part of who they are. The goal is to change the relationship with it, to recognize when it's actually useful versus when it's just running on autopilot, to develop the ability to say, "This is anxiety talking," and choose not to follow every directive it gives, to build a life where your worth isn't contingent on constant achievement, where rest is a right, not a reward, where being human, with limits and needs and imperfections, is not just acceptable, but expected. High-functioning anxiety taught you how to survive through control and achievement. The next chapter is learning that you no longer need to prove your right to exist, that you can be loved without being perfect, that you can rest without catastrophe, that your value isn't determined by how much you handle or how little you need. This isn't about becoming less capable, it's about becoming free, free to experience life instead of constantly managing it, free to be present instead of always preparing, free to finally, after all these years of vigilance, exhale. And that exhale, when it comes, isn't weakness. It's the beginning of actually living.